Story 1. I've never been on a blind date before, but seeing that we were in quarantine and there was nothing else to do on a Friday night, I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. My friend Kelly set me up with one of her family friends. His name was Frank. He was 27, friendly, and had a great job. So Kelly, being the matchmaker that she is, sent us each an email with a link to a Zoom meeting. We were to log on at 8 p.m. for a date. We each agreed to cook our favorite dishes and simulate a real in-person dinner date. Cheesy, I know. It was all organized at the last minute, so besides the typical, "Great, I look forward to meeting you," responses we each wrote to the email thread, there was no other interaction between me and Frank. Friday was a busy day at work, so I was running a bit late. I finished cooking myself my favorite dinner, chicken parmesan with white wine, and sat down in front of my MacBook. It was a really cold night. It was still March, so it was totally dark by the time I logged on to Zoom. I adjusted my computer chair to a more comfortable position, clicked on the link, and took a deep breath. Even though it was only virtual, I was still nervous. It was a blind date after all, and I never even saw a picture of the guy. I know. Why didn't I ask for a picture? Kelly refused to give me one. She said that he wasn't exactly my type, but begged me to give him a chance. I made some bad decisions with guys in the past, so I figured why not. If I didn't like him, I could always just make up an excuse and log off. I was at home after all. The link was slow to load. I never had to wait this long using Zoom before. Must be high traffic, I thought to myself. Suddenly, the link finished loading, and I was brought to the video chat. I could see a large empty desk with a white wall behind it. It looked like some sort of basement or something. Great start, I thought to myself. I heard a large bang, and then a man sat at the desk. He was extraordinarily handsome. He was wearing a light blue polo shirt. His hair was a tinge of blonde and combed to the side in a neat but casual sort of way. His eyes were emerald blue and made his skin look very golden tan. He looked a bit surprised for a moment, as if he wasn't expecting the Zoom meeting to load. Excited and shocked that Kelly said he wasn't my type, I began speaking. "Hey, nice to meet you, Frank. I'm Angela," I said into the camera and smiled. The man started smiling but remained silent for a second, fiddling with his keyboard. "So, how do you know Kelly? It was nice of her to set us up," I said to break the silence. "Oh, yes, it was very nice of her. Kelly, is an old childhood friend," Frank said with another smile. I was confused because Frank didn't have his dinner in front of him. "So, where's your meal for this dinner date?" I asked with a laugh. "Oh, 1 minute," Frank said in a surprised way. Frank returned around 5 minutes later with some Easy Mac. "I'm not much of a cook," he said with yet another smile. Man, was he handsome. We continued talking for over 2 hours. He had a very interesting job as a scientist and had a passion for painting. He told me I was so beautiful that he wanted to paint my portrait like they painted members of the nobility in the old Victorian days. I was flattered. He was so charming. He told me all about his childhood, his family, his dog, and his favorite restaurants, all of which were located in my own town. When we realized that we lived so close to one another, we exchanged addresses. I know, I shouldn't have done this so soon, but I was a bit tipsy from the wine, and I figured that Kelly knew him, so why not? After another half hour of speaking, I was getting tired. I told Frank thanks for the lovely evening, and we made plans to hang out in person next weekend. I didn't want to break the quarantine, but I really liked him. We each said our goodnights, and I exited Zoom. Around an hour later, I was laying in bed when I received a text message. It was from Kelly. "Don't ever ask me for help again," she wrote in all caps. What is wrong? Did Frank say I said something bad? I think the date went pretty well," I texted back immediately, with a few extra question marks to indicate how confused I was. "Yeah, okay. Frank just called me, telling me you stood him up. Next time, find your own dates," Kelly said, with an angry-faced emoji. Suddenly, I realized something. Kelly said Frank wasn't much of a looker, but the man on the Zoom meeting certainly was. The man also was very vague about how he knew Kelly. Maybe it wasn't Frank, I thought to myself. I heard about Zoom meetings being hacked, but never thought it could happen to me. I grabbed my phone and started calling Kelly. She wasn't picking up, as she never does when she's angry. Suddenly, I heard a knocking at my front door. I ran to the window overlooking my front yard and saw Frank, or whoever the man from the Zoom meeting was, standing there. He was smiling and had both of his hands in his pockets. This wasn't some cliché horror movie. I called the cops immediately and locked myself in my bedroom. Frank knocked a few more times before the cops showed up. He tried running, but he didn't make it very far. The cops tackled him to the ground a few hundred feet down my block. Nothing could have prepared me for the news which they were about to share. They said that he was carrying a knife and told them that he was going to use it to make me smile. Needless to say, I haven't used Zoom since. Make sure you know who you're speaking to on Zoom. You never know who really is on the other side of that webcam. Story 2. I'm Dom. These events all took place on my birthday a few weeks ago. I was turning 25 years old, smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. My two best friends, John and Pete, planned to throw me a surprise party at our favorite pub. But seeing that was now out of the question, Pete organized a Zoom chat for the three of us. We each sat at our respective desks and had a bottle of whiskey, Jack Daniels to be exact. We were just hanging out. It was turning out to be a pretty fun night. We were discussing how our lives have been going, what our plans were for the remainder of that weekend, and when the hell we would be able to see each other in person again. Pete had to sign off, as he had to wake up early for work the next morning. After we busted his chops for a few minutes, Pete said his goodbyes and left the chat. He can't stay up past 10 anymore, past his bedtime, John joked, as he took another swig of whiskey. Yeah, he's so soft, man, I replied jokingly. Our conversation and drinking continued for around another hour. We were listening to some old Bob Dylan together. It was a perfect birthday given the circumstances. Suddenly, after Like a Rolling Stone ended, a third person entered the chat. It was just a black box, indicating that the new participant had his video turned off. The name Anonymous099 was displayed underneath it. Seeing that we were both drunk, we started laughing. What kind of Zoom name is that? I mumbled to John, in between swigs of whiskey. No idea, man. Freaking weirdo, John replied. Thinking it was some sort of glitch, and as I mentioned, thoroughly drunk, we simply ignored the new member of the chat. We continued talking as if he wasn't even there. After a few more Dylan tracks, we heard a low mumbling sound. Stop talking, man. What is that noise? I shouted to John. We shut off the music, and I put up my volume. It was Anonymous. Hello, John and Dom. I'm here to make a trade, Anonymous said, in some sort of clearly computerized voice. How about I let you choose between an ass whooping and leaving our chat, John replied. Seeing that I was now the host, I tried booting Anonymous from the chat. For some reason, it wasn't working. Suddenly, we were both muted, and Anonymous had control of the entire meeting. His video was suddenly turned on, and a man with a clown mask appeared in a poorly lit room. The mask had a sinister smile with large blood-red lips. The eye holes were surrounded by purple ovals. The man had long red hair that flowed down his shoulders. Dom, you live at 308 Maple Street. You are single. You work as a mechanic at Torrance Automotive, and your favorite movie is Jaws, Anonymous declared. I was now unmuted. This had to be Pete pranking us, I thought to myself. He did originally create this Zoom meeting, and he knew all of this information. Pete, cut it out, man. This isn't even funny, I muttered into the webcam. Suddenly, I was once again muted. I know your friend Pete, but this isn't him. I'm just someone who knows you both very well, Anonymous declared in his robotic voice. He continued his tirade by muttering off all of my bank account information, email passwords, and social security number. As if this wasn't enough, he went on to recite all of John's personal information as well. I was shocked. Everything he said was accurate. I looked into the webcam at John. He was staring back at me dumbfounded, with a worried look on his face. I was once again unmuted. I'm assuming you want something from us, I said in a trembling voice. I want $10,000 from each of you. Send it to this bank account, or all of your information will be sold to some very bad people to do some very bad things, Anonymous replied. An account number appeared in the chat window. After I wrote down the digits, Anonymous ended the Zoom meeting for all of us. I was at a loss. Do we pay this guy, or run the risk of pure identity theft. I grabbed my cell phone to text John. As he began formulating a text, my phone froze. Suddenly, it began typing on its own. Money within 1 hour, or you're done. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, my phone seemingly typed on its own. If this guy could also hack our cell phones, he was no amateur. We needed to pay him, and we needed to pay him now. I called John, and he was even more afraid than I was. He had recently inherited quite a bit of money and had a lot to lose. Long story short, we both wired Anonymous $10,000 and called the authorities. They changed all of our banking information and even our social security numbers. Anonymous still has our addresses, but it's something we just have to live with. Moving is simply not an option given the pandemic. We never heard from Anonymous after that. We never used any web chat platform either. Hell, I barely even text anymore. The internet is a scary place. Don't think that the chair behind your laptop is the safest place in the world. Stay alert and be aware of hackers. They don't just attack in the movies. It can happen to anyone, even to you. Hey guys, Scare Central here. I just want to thank everyone for viewing this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'm really pumped with how fast this channel has been growing. I'm really trying to build a special place for horror fans. So if you know anyone who might enjoy this channel, please share it with them. All of these stories are original, and I wrote them especially for you guys, so I'm really glad that you have been listening. Please comment with any story ideas you have. I hope that we can work together to make Scare Central the future of all things horror. Thank you, and stay well.